Back.
Chair recognizes the gentlelady from New York, Ms. Stefanik.
I yield to the chair.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. I think you were going to indulge the Congresswoman from Florida and her point of inquiry.
The gentlelady from Florida is recognized.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my understanding that...
Are you making a point of order?
No, I'm asking you a question.
Okay.
A point of inquiry.
Okay.
It's my understanding that the minority in this committee under the rules is entitled to the same testimony, information, documents that the majority is entitled to. So, I mean, I'm not aware that you're able to withhold information from the minority that we would need to use to prepare for.
When it comes to whistleblowers, you're not. And I would just remind the committee, remind everyone. Look, when it comes to whistleblowers, you are not.
That's not right.
It's shocking that the
that
gentleman.
Is not right.
It's shocking
that
the gentleman.
You talk so much about the whistleblower and the impeachment.
It's shocking that the gentleman from New York
all of the information we had
when you were part of an investigation with an anonymous
whistleblower. We have.
Chairman, these individuals
Mr. Chairman,
haven't
I
been declared
can't hear 5 people at once. Could we have regular order?
Mr. Chairman,
Chair recognizes it's.
I'm inquiring, and I was not.
And I've told you that when it comes to whistleblowers, you are not entitled to it. That's at the discretion of Mr. Allen.
Mr. Chairman, these individuals have been determined not to be whistleblowers. These are not whistleblowers. They've been determined by the agency not to be whistleblowers. Are you deciding that they're whistleblowers?
Yes, the law decides. Did you not listen to Mr. Levitt's testimony? Did you not read the law? The law decides that they are whistleblowers.
His attorney is
asserting
recognizes
the gentlelady from New York. The gentlelady from New York has been recognized.
The law has not determined they are whistleblowers. His attorney is just asserting that.
Gentlelady from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have lost my voice. I'm yielding to Mr. Gates.
I thank the gentlelady not only for yielding, but for her extensive work on these issues, not only during our hearings, but during the many depositions we've taken to develop evidence and to bring it forward for the majority, the minority, and all of the country.
Did you give us that evidence?
I know that if the gentlelady from
Are you going to give us that evidence?
Was able to speak, that she'd certainly be eager to do so. Mr. Allen, we just astonishingly heard a Democrat on this committee question your allegiance to the United States. How many tours in Iraq did you do?
I did 2 tours in Iraq, sir.
And for how many decades have you held a security clearance?
For 2 decades, sir.
Ever been called into question before?
No, sir.
And you also received the Employee of the Year Award for the Charlotte Field Office, is that right?
That is correct, sir.
Did you receive any medals during your service for the Marine Corps and the United States Navy?
I did, sir. As a member of the Marine Corps, I received a Navy Commendation Medal and a Navy Achievement Medal.
Seems to me your allegiance to the United States is pretty well established over multiple decades, wearing the uniform, fighting for our country, and I am proud that you continue to fight for our country as a whistleblower here, making a disclosure to the United States Congress. And Mr. Allen, is it your belief that you were retaliated against because you shared an email that questioned the truthfulness of FBI Director Christopher Wray?
Yes, sir.
And you believed that he wasn't truthful based on testimony he'd given to the United States Senate, isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
And in that testimony to the Senate, you believed that Christopher Wray indicated that there were no confidential informants and no FBI assets that were present at the Capitol on January 6th that were part of the violent riot. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
Please play the video. We're now going to hear from George Hill, who worked at the Boston field office.
The SSA in Boston said they were going to a political rally, which is First Amendment protected activity. No, we're not uploading. We're not starting cases on these people. To which they said, well, we're going to call your SAC. And the SSA said, go right ahead. Because when you're pushing back, you want to make sure that you have your 6 covered. So the SAC and the ASAC were intimately aware of these kinds of exchanges that were going on. And again, to his credit, Joe Bonavolante said, no, we're not opening up cases on people who went to a rally. And I forgot a key part. The SSA for CT2 said, happy to do it. Show us where they were inside the Capitol, and we'll look into it. To which WFO said, we can't show you those videos unless you can tell us the exact time and place those individuals were inside the Capitol. To which the SSA responded back, and I was privy to these conversations firsthand. Why can't you show us? Why can't you just give us access to the 11,000 hours of video that's available? Because there may be UC's undercover officers or CHS's confidential human sources on those videos whose identity we need to protect.
So, Mr. Allen, you got retaliated against for saying the very thing that the Washington field office was telling Boston, when the Boston field office was saying, we're not going to go and investigate people that just showed up at a rally without sufficient criminal predicate. The Washington field office told Boston, well, you know what? We can't give you the evidence because it might disclose the very CIs and UCs that you are concerned about. But that doesn't surprise you, Mr. O'Boyle, does it?
No, sir.
And the reason it doesn't surprise you is that in a different part of the country, you saw that same pressure from the Washington field office. And did they ever try to get you to do something that was outside the normal order of law enforcement activity?
Yes, sir.
And what did the Washington field office try to get you to do that violated the law and regulations?
They tried to get me to serve a federal grand jury subpoena when there was no proper predicate to do so.
And the reason there was no predicate was because it was based on an anonymous tip, right?
That's correct.
And time and again, the Washington field office was trying to pressure you without corroboration to go start process on people. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
And so while I agree that January 6th was a violent day, a bad day, a day that nobody wants to relive, violence on January 6th doesn't justify weaponizing the government against people who were innocent and did nothing wrong. Thank you for blowing the whistle on that. I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, I have a sincere point of inquiry. Rule 11, Clause 2.
The gentleman is not recognized.
I have a question about the rules.
Mr. Lynch for 5 minutes.
It's a point of order, a question about the rules.
Point of order. State your point of order.
The point of order is why does Rule 11, Clause 2, subsection E1A not apply to this subcommittee? I can read for you. Each committee shall keep a complete record of all committee action, which shall include, in the case of a meeting or hearing transcript, a substantially verbatim account of remarks actually made during the proceedings, subject only to some technical things. Such records shall be the property of the House, and each member, delegate, and the resident commissioner shall have access thereto. Why does that not apply? Where is the whistleblower exception in the rules of Congress that says that does not apply?
It's the prerogative of the committee to decide.
No, it's not. It's the rules of the House.
We have the whistleblower testimony. The whistleblower does not wish that to be made available to the Democrats at this time.
The whistleblower doesn't make committee rules, sir.
Mr. Lynch is recognized for 5 minutes of questioning.
Mr. Chairman, is the ruling of the chair always unquestioned, or do we have a vote on how some of these issues are decided?
If you state a proper point of order, and there's some kind
I just did state a point of order.
The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized for 5 minutes of question.
Mr. Friend, I want to ask some questions about surrounding the circumstances of the removal of your clearance by the FBI. Mr. Friend, I'd like to ask you about your move to the domestic terrorism unit. You originally transferred to Daytona from the FBI's Omaha field office, Sioux City Residence Agency in June 2021. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you were assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force at the end of September 2021, correct?
Yes, I was reassigned.
Okay. And you had been exclusively working on child sex abuse material known as CSAM cases. Is that correct?
Prior to that point, yes.
And that was before you moved to the JTTF, isn't that right?
Yes.
Did you stop working on child abuse cases after October 1st, 2021?
No, I did not.
Well, in fact, the FBI planned to find a replacement for you when you moved from one position to the other. Is that correct?
which office are you referring to?
So when you were moved from the child sexual abuse cases and moved to the JTTF, you were informed that the FBI would find a replacement for your other position. Was that correct?
No, that's not correct at all. I was told that those cases were going to be considered a local matter going forward. They would not be resourced, and that I was going to be reassigned to work on domestic terrorism cases. At the time, my supervisor retired, and his interim told me there was not enough work to do. So until a full-time replacement could come in to continue to work on the child pornography investigations and make myself available for domestic terrorism cases. And then when my new supervisor arrived early in 2022, I explained that arrangement to him, and he agreed that that was the best use of my time, even though I was told to, on my timesheet, account for my actions as being solely devoted to domestic terrorism. I was in a situation where I was essentially only working child pornography and human trafficking cases.
I just want to point out that in your interview with the committee, you stated that you were told you could balance both until a permanent replacement arrived. That was during your transcribed interview. Are you restating that or disputing that now?
I'm not disputing that. I was unofficially said, just keep doing what you're doing, but on paper and on your timesheet, we're going to put you down as a domestic terrorism agent.
You said here that they told you could balance both responsibilities until your replacement arrived. Are you disputing that now?
I'm disputing that there was no replacement that was going to be arriving, ever. I was told that that violation was not going to be worked after I was moved over to the Joint Terrorism Task Force. Then subsequently, But here you're saying that you were allowed to do both jobs until your replacement arrived. So your assumption then was not that the replacement was not going to arrive, right? Are you talking about a replacement for my supervisor or a replacement for me?
For the responsibilities that you were doing under the child sex abuse cases?
There was no replacement that was going to arrive in our office for that. Those cases were going to be no longer worked.
That would be a conjecture on your part at that point, right?
No, I was told that.
Okay. You continued to work the child abuse cases until you were suspended in 2022, correct?
Yes.
Okay. In fact, you even received an award for your CSAM work in July 2022, correct?
Yes.
Now, you got this award after you took on all the child exploitation cases for the local sheriff's officer earlier that same year, while also working your JTTF responsibilities, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You took on the role of a full-time employee assigned to work child abuse investigation cases, correct?
I took on the role of whatever I was needed to work. I made myself available to work domestic terrorism, but there was not enough work to do.
So could you tell us that you were reassigned? And so first you tell us that you were reassigned and told that the CSAM cases weren't a priority. Then you tell us that not only did they plan on replacing you, they let you continue working those cases until you were suspended. Is that correct?
Yes, it was no longer a priority on paper. This is the way that the FBI allocates its manpower resources. So on paper, I was not supposed to be recording my work on those cases. But then within my office, which was not in the Jacksonville headquarters, my frontline supervisor agreed that my time was better spent working on CSAM cases.
All right, Mr. Chairman, my time has expired.
Gentleman's time has expired. The chair recognizes the gentlelady from Florida for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to all our gentlemen for appearing before us today and coming forward. I want to thank you again for your courage today and also for your service to our nation. And as we predicted, our Democrat colleagues have immediately opened up with claims of conspiracy theories, MAGA extremism, mock outrage. Seems the only ones displaying mock outrage up here today are, in fact, the Democrats. Because according to them, journalists who appear before us aren't journalists, and you here today are not whistleblowers, but we in fact know that you are. But interesting times. The line about Republicans defunding police, that one seems to be particularly special because, respectfully to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, as the wife of a SWAT medic, as the wife of a first responder currently who has served our community for the last 16 years, I can tell you with certainty that no one hates a bad cop more than a good cop. No one. And I see from you nodding your head that you agree with that sentiment. It is inaccurate and wrong to make that assumption that Republicans want to defund police. It is false. Because forcing a political agenda down the throats of our hardworking men and women of the FBI with the threat and then subsequent follow through of retaliation because they are whistleblowers, because they didn't want to break the law, because they knew that it was wrong to target Americans without cause, and they swore an oath to the United States Constitution, not to a political party. That makes them whistleblowers. That makes them courageous for coming forward and telling the truth. Gentlemen, I'm going to ask you all to please turn on your microphones because we're going to go really fast, okay? Mr. Friend, during your service with the FBI, you served on the FBI SWAT team, correct?
Yes.
As you heard, my husband is a SWAT medic and has been part of joint operations with the FBI. So I would like to know, what is the threshold for these call-outs? And can you briefly detail the type of crimes warranted for an FBI SWAT team call-out?
There's a threat matrix, the SWAT matrix, in order to utilize the tactical team, but it could be as easy as somebody being in possession of a firearm or a request from a local agency just to use the FBI SWAT team.
Okay, so Mr. Friend, your security clearance was suspended by the FBI after raising concerns for the use of excessive force with regard to the use of FBI SWAT teams to your direct supervisor, correct?
Yes.
Would you consider this retaliation?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. O'Boyle, you were suspended without pay from the FBI on September 23rd, correct?
I was initially suspended on the 26th. The suspension of pay came a little bit later.
Thank you for that clarification. You had raised concerns to your chain of command when no action was taken, that you reported these concerns then to Congress, correct?
Correct.
Once you contacted Congress, you were then suspended. Your top secret security clearance was then suspended for those protected disclosures to Congress, correct?
Correct.
That seems like retaliation, no?
That's to me.
Okay. Mr. Allen, you were suspended from the FBI without pay on January 10th, correct?
That's correct.
You were suspended because you sent links to your squad to provide situational awareness about the FBI investigation on January 6th, correct?
Yes.
Yes or no? Wasn't open source searches and sharing of information part of the duties of your job?
Yes.
And subsequently, after doing your job and your supervisors not liking the tone of the open source articles you provided because it didn't fit the FBI's narrative, your security clearance was revoked, correct? To all our whistleblowers, yes or no, do you believe that the retaliation pattern has a cooling effect on other agents from coming forward or speaking up? Yes or no? Mr. O'Boyle.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you believe that the FBI is purposefully hostile to you for that reason, to keep agents from speaking up?
Yes.
Yes, without question.
Yes.
So I think it's clear we have a pattern here. If you speak up about the abuses, you are seen as an agent or are sharing information that may not fall in line with the FBI's political narrative. You will be suspended without pay, have your security clearance revoked, and your life will be turned upside down. It's pretty clear that the MO is if you don't comply, they will retaliate. If you don't agree with the political agenda, you get suspended. And they do it in such a way to deter others from speaking up and speaking out. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the weaponization of government. That is the weaponization of government, and that is why we are here today. Not because we have a political agenda, not because we are here to go over events of the past. We want to fix it. We have to expose it, stop it, and prevent it from happening again. That is why we are here. These men are whistleblowers. The gentlemen who came before us in previous hearings, they were journalists. And just because you don't address them as such does not mean that they are not who they say they are. They have been retaliated against. And regardless of your party affiliation, this behavior is unacceptable, and we need to stop it. Republicans, Democrats, independents alike, this is a concern we should all share. This is the weaponization of government. And it is our job, our constitutional duty, to stop it. With that, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Chair recognizes.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Wasserman Schultz.
The gentlelady from Florida is recognized, Ms. Wasserman Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record this document that clearly indicates the questions of allegiance to the United States on the part of Mr. Allen, and that were specifically the reasons for the revocation of his security clearance, in spite of the gentlelady from Florida's assertions to the contrary. Thank you. Mr. Friend, I find some humor in the irony of Republicans inviting you here the same week Congress is focused on honoring law enforcement. You've repeatedly made calls to undermine our law enforcement agencies. Since being rightly suspended, you've led Republican calls to defund law enforcement, recently describing the FBI as a feckless garbage institution. Since joining Twitter in November, no less than 40 times you called for our brave law enforcement personnel to be defunded. You even urged local police to sabotage criminal investigations by urging citizens to, and I quote, pressure your sheriffs to refuse to cooperate with FBI investigations. That is not only reckless advice, it's a recipe for allowing more criminals to run loose in our neighborhoods. Perhaps Chairman Jordan can explain why Republicans are promoting defunding law enforcement and increased crime before our subcommittee today. But, Mr. Friend, your motivations appear to be, today, crystal clear. For months, you've pressured Republicans to call you to a hearing. In fact, in December, you said Chairman Jordan and Republicans took your complaint of alleged FBI wrongdoing and, quote, used it for campaign rocket fuel and 4-minute appearances on Fox News. And I'll admit, you're right. Republicans are using you. But it goes both ways. You're engaging in the self-promotion of your new book that's about to be released. And what great timing to be on TV and in Congress right before your book tour starts. It's quite coincidental. But let's try to move past your financial exploitations and talk about your objection to the use of a SWAT team to arrest a January 6th suspect in August of 2022. You repeatedly stated that you objected to the use of a SWAT team for the arrest of Tyler Quinton Bench, a man who was involved in the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Mr. Friend, you did not participate in any decisions about the use of the SWAT team, nor were you a member of that SWAT team, correct? Just yes or no, please.
I was not a member of that SWAT team.
And you didn't participate in any decisions about the use of that SWAT team, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. You also testified that being a gun owner is a reason why a SWAT team could be used to arrest a suspect, according to the SWAT team official protocols. Mr. Friend, I'd like to ask you to take a look at the screen. On the screen are 2 images of the only member of the 3 percenters arrested in your area that day. For those who don't know, the Anti-Defamation League describes the 3 percenters as a militia movement with, quote, a track record of criminal activity ranging from weapons violations to terrorist plots and attacks. As you can see in the pictures of Mr. Bench at the Capitol on January 6th, he's in full tactical gear, wearing chemical irritant canisters on his tactical vest and a black radio and antenna on his left, with a GoPro-style camera mounted on his right shoulder. The FBI knew Mr. Bench to be both armed and dangerous. The good men and women within federal, state, and local law enforcement know that making the right decision on bringing qualified backup to dangerous situations has life or death consequences. It's a decision that has particularly resonance for law enforcement in my own community. A little over a year before Mr. Bench was arrested, 2 FBI agents in my district in Sunrise, Florida, were shot and killed on the front doorstep while trying to serve an arrest warrant on child pornographers. They were just trying to do their jobs, protecting the American people, when the suspect opened fire and started shooting from inside. In fact, these brave agents who work for what you call a feckless and garbage institution lost their life doing the very work you claim it neglects, chasing down people who exploit children. So yes or no, Mr. Friend, knowing what you know now about Mr. Bench, that he was known to be heavily armed and a member of a terrorist group, was it appropriate for the FBI to use a SWAT team as a precaution to protect FBI personnel and other law enforcement officers that day? Yes or no?
I can't answer that with a yes or no. I can give you a little bit of context.
I'd like to know whether you still think it was inappropriate.
I've arrested over 150 violent criminals in my career, never had to use a SWAT team to do it.
Okay.
The reason for that is because individuals
on that day,
were cooperative
yes or no,
with us.
Reclaiming my time, can you give me a yes or no answer, or even indicate whether you have changed your mind that using a SWAT team to arrest that gentleman was inappropriate?
My opinion remains to be anybody who's been cooperative and pledged to surrender in the case of law enforcement criminal charges.
So the answer is no. You also
is
claim,
not necessary for that.
Reclaiming my time, you also claim that your top secret security clearance was improperly revoked, yet an independent investigation concluded that you demonstrated a number of security concerns, which included that you refused to execute a court-ordered arrest warrant and when you downloaded documents from intelligence systems to an unauthorized removable flash drive. The cherry on top could be your unauthorized recording of executive management, which I'm sure you know violates Florida law, along with your unsanctioned interviews with Sputnik News established by the Russian government in 2014 and fully owned by the Kremlin and Putin's cronies.
Time of the gentle
I think it's clear who is weaponizing government.
Gentleman from